But like I said, trying to bring,
Yes.
everything where it
Things
needs to
that
be.
are compliant, so I get it. Yeah, I prefer actually to work without a contract.
Okay. Let's start the video. I don't think that there's anybody waiting to get in, but I will minimize. Oops.
Breakfast of champions.
Yeah,
Okay, whenever you guys are ready.
bad eating all this in front of you.
Do we need a?
She already ate his eggs,
Come to a
I
health
saw it.
meeting, come to a health meeting and chocolate and coffee.
Well, you should have brought some to share.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, honestly, that's really the only faux pas, right? is You didn't bring it up
Fair,
to share.
fair.
Okay, let's avoid that. I'll take notes.
Okay, are you sure? Cause I can have Kelsey do notes if you want.
Okay.
Would you like Kelsey or did you like?
Whatever, give me something to do. Let's both take notes, Kelsey. We'll compare at the end.
Oh gosh, well, I didn't bring a computer, so I think you've got a leg up on me.
Okay.
Just layers, cause I can't do notes. Anyway,
I'm
alright.
a much faster typer.
Okay, let's get started now. We are ready.
I got
Excellent.
I got the notes.
10:16, here we go. Sorry for the delay. Do roll call. Who do we all the commissioners are here. Okay, public comment. I don't think we have any public comment to take. Unless Lisa, do you have anything else for us outside of?
I have my
Agenda
contract,
items?
my first contract, actually,
Okay.
that I've ever signed, that needs to be signed, by you, I believe,
Okay,
myself, and then it needs to be notarized today.
okay, righty.
I'm glad to be back.
Very good. All right, moving on to general business. We have the approval of our minutes.
And I put them in there because I know Tracy had sent them out in February and March, and I know in the past, and this is me, I put it in there as a placeholder of, in the past, like, the clerk and recorder sends them out, and then they go on to BOCC meeting, so I don't know if they've actually been approved on a regular BOCC meeting. Okay, they are in the file,
Okay,
In the Teams folder.
yeah, Board of Health 518 folder. So I just put that in there as a, okay, which knowing then that's how we wanted to roll forward. Like to have just
here
do
or
the-
in
yes,
our regular meeting? Here.
Yes, no, that's what I'm asking,
Oh, which way would we like to do that? Okay,
so that Liz and I can work on that, along with Tracy and whoever else today.
yeah,
Let's just do it as you sit as Board of Health,
We
right?
can do it here, right?
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
I don't have a preference. Oh, there they are. I'm sorry, I did not review the minutes. Should we
We,
punt them to the next? What were you gonna ask?
maybe we could bump them to the end of the agenda and we can gently multitask.
Okay, we'll give that a shot.
We can table it to the next meeting.
Yeah, we can move them, and I'm curious if we can move the email as well, as long as it's documented.
Okay. Maybe, I mean, we'll,
So we can make monthly, quarterly.
The quarterly, but I'll talk about like, seeing if we can't meet more often, but.
oh, great, okay. Well, let's table the next meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
Just, I mean, the
Sounds great. Me
reality
too.
of reading this and paying attention.
Okay,
And maybe that'll be not next quarter, but sooner. Okay,
all right, perfect.
and on to reports.
And so, before I start, because our strategic plans are first thing, and we have like a PDF in there as well that shows our slides, so to speak, but it's easier on this to do it as a PDF. And so the first thing is, because we are only meeting quarterly.
Sorry.
You know, I would like to have just a little discussion about like, hey, does that make sense? I feel like because there's been so many, and I wouldn't say so many things happening, there's nothing happening that needs any decisions, but more of just that connection point, because quarterly just feels like a lot. And in the past, because of the pandemic and everything else, we had a much regular rhythm, and I don't know if that's something we wanna do and do like bi-monthly, so every other month we're meeting. And then having an opportunity, because I know when we talked about the bigger pieces of,
You can sit up, why don't you sit up here and you can drive?
Oh, I need that, not that strategic plan, I'll actually need the, it's the LCPHA Board of Health meeting 5/18.
You wanna come sit right here, please? And-
Oh, yeah, sorry, of course. I'll drive, I have no problem, just gotta direct me.
Alright, I know, we're-
You're good.
You're gonna move as I'm gonna, oh, whatever. All right.
Why don't you sit right here?
I'll co-drive.
All right, but before we do that, like, because the conversation was around, like, hey, we want as just as a BOCC, you know, having more regular work sessions, and then I thought, you know, for us, we could do two birds with one stone, you know, meet is the Board of Health. I think there's gonna be a need for that as well. For community planning development, especially as we have to talk about some like Reg 43, and if they're gonna truly define a bedroom, and I recognize that Liz said they had nothing to report today, so they're not here. And but I do feel that they're gonna need to make some of those decisions really rolling into the septic season, so just
Oh,
already
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
pre-populating some meetings and then having that, okay, if you have to post something publicly, right, we already have some meetings in place that would fall into, you know, those timeframes versus, hey, we need it right now,
Yeah.
is kind of where my thought is. So it's kind of twofold for, not only for us, but for community planning development as well as they come online with septic, so.
Great.
And I also think as Summit Community Care Clinic comes on board,
Exactly, because there's gonna be a lot.
we're gonna need.
Yes, and I wouldn't say a lot because it's a slow process, as we know, but
But it's important for us all to be on the same page.
agreed. And so I would like to propose that of like, hey, can we find some dates, and I can work with, you know, both Liz and Tim to kind of look at your schedules and figure out like where we can fill in the blanks, because our next scheduled meeting is in July at
Can we
this
do it
point.
once a month, at least for the summer?
It's really,
We can also, if we need to do some work sessions on the development of that, because there's no formal decision that's been made, maybe we
True.
can add it to our
so maybe make
standing-
that.
We now have like
We could go to
two
the form and
days
do
of
a work session.
sessions. We could have a standing
Oh,
placeholder
okay.
in there too,
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I hear what you're
if
saying.
you need it. And
Well,
then
I
if we
think so.
don't,
Then
then
we
we
just
don't.
cancel it. So then I'll work with Liz on that.
Yep,
Okay.
and then monthly meetings sound good
Shoot me
for
an email.
any
Or
formal
tell me what narrative you
decisions.
want, and we'll
For
just set a
actual
station
And
meeting
if,
for the
okay.
June and July's,
That works
or
great.
excuse me.
Okay.
And then monthly meetings for the Board of Health.
Well, I think some of them, because they don't have to be a decision, I think we can do it as a BOCC work session. And then we can bring it to a Board of Health if there's an actual decision, because a lot of what's gonna happen is initially a Board of Health decision versus like a BOCC. When it comes to like space and things like that, it's gonna be BOCC,
Oh,
like
yeah.
just that weird, you know,
Yeah.
nuancey piece.
Yep,
Between like, which one do we ever? All right, perfect, okay, great.
so we'll do every other month,
Mm-hmm.
and then
That
if we
sounds
need to, we can just schedule.
And then
a
we'll keep
special
our
meeting.
BOH as our standings, and then have the conversation with community planning development because of that Reg 43. Not that, like even now, like I would like that to reflect that it's community planning development that it's falling under and not public health, because right now all the language says public health, so.
Regular standing agenda item for work sessions, but every other meeting is Board of Health. And then if there's a BOCC decision on space and facilities and budgeting, we'll just add that to
That sounds
BOCC
great.
agendas.
Alrighty, that sounds great, and then we'll sit behind and we'll work it through.
Okay,
We got it, okay.
So no BOH meetings every other month?
yes, BOH meetings every other month.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
We could do that, yes, I have no problem with that. And like I said, if we do it in 2 months, we're like, no, the work session's doing it, and we'll make a
Right.
decision. We'll try it now, and then we'll figure it out.
Sounds good.
We can always cancel a meeting.
We
I'd
can.
rather have them on the books and then step back.
I mean,
As always.
also, if it's easier to schedule, like trying to find the three of us, I mean, since it's the three of us, it could be like just tacked on to BOCC meetings.
Right,
If that, just if
Like,
that's
yeah, we
easier to
could
schedule.
convene as the BOH under a BOCC meeting.
right, you can end your
or we could end
BOCC
the
meeting
yeah.
and then open as a BOH, yes,
Since we're there,
absolutely. Mhm.
Again, just if that's easier to schedule that way, or not.
Hey, and welcome. Did you grab my water bottle? I think it's still. Perfect, okay. And so, Anne, we were just talking about
having the ability, knowing there might be some language changes that need to come online, that we're gonna try to move our BOC, or our Board of Health meetings to be every other month. And then an opportunity to be on the work session agenda to kind of work through some language things. We have some things kind of with Summit Community Care Clinic and what opportunities might be there. So just kind of laying out some meetings with the opportunity to meet and discuss those things prior to decisions being made.
Beautiful, and happy to give it, whenever it's appropriate, just kind of an update on where
Yeah.
David and I are, so wherever on the agenda that you want that.
Yes. I have a placeholder in there for you. All right, so the big thing today is just really some of the questions that came up in our last work session was really understanding. I had given you that handout, and we'll see it here in a second. Again, of like, hey, here's our capabilities, here's the services, and I think there was just kind of like wanting to really see how we're meeting everything that is like core public health and that we're responsible for, and then in the future some opportunities. And then looking at like the strategic plan, so to speak. And so, where's my next page? Oh, there you are. All right, so obviously we're here today. And then the other piece is that Mike's gonna just do, at the end, he'll just do a little piece on kind of the Healthcare Coalition and just kind of an update there. No, okay, there you go. And so obviously, the purpose for us is really to re-examine what we're doing in Lake County Public Health, to refocus our collective efforts in the end, right, with our bigger goal being like maximizing the health outcomes and benefits to our community. And basically, this is kind of what we're gonna do in the next couple slides, demonstrate the national, state, and county alignment by crosswalking CDPHE requirements with public health functions and services provided to this community specifically. Oops, wrong way, sorry. So this is that document that I had shown, and I think that conversation that we talked about was, okay, so there's the areas and capabilities and how are we meeting them, so to speak. So what the next couple of slides will show are basically where we're at. So I'll just go back for 1 second. So when we look at the areas and capabilities, this is what we're talking about. So these are the community-specific services, and so we'll just go from there. And so what made sense, and Tim and I had kind of gone back and forth of like, hey, what makes sense? And just to kind of give you that, it's like I'm not here to read every single piece because you guys will have the opportunity to go back and review and think of it. But if something does jump out, let me know. So, you know, with a service like communicable disease prevention, there's a couple of different ways that we're meeting that for, you know, both CDPHE and what we're doing here locally. We did put, you know, who's doing what, and some of our open positions, because right now our immunization nurse does usually lead communicable disease investigation and control. We still have a COVID-19 team, so Heidi Coates is still leading up that piece. The next is environmental public health. And so for us, it's our you know, retail food, it's schools and childcare, school water testing, which we've been doing, and then well water and radon testing. That's more just informative at this point. Like we don't have like a, you know, a formalized program. It's just more of like, hey, this is what you can do for well water testing. This is what you can do for radon testing. Like nothing formalized, but those kind of those capture pieces. And right now I was only looking at public health and I didn't put in CPD, but that really is, you know, on-site wastewater treatment system is really the other piece that would fall in here as a required versus, you know, some of the other free ones. And then maternal, child, adolescent, and family health. Obviously, we have a couple of things happening in that section, more of those direct service pieces that we have.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
The
of course.
environmental public health piece, like, building capacity across CPD and public health on those pieces, and understanding that, you know, David might have like a narrower scope than that general environmental health piece. What, one thing that pops into my head is like the lost charge or like direction to Lake County through CDPHE of like no new wells in California Gulch, as an example. Like how do we bridge that gap between like that information and the history with public health meeting as the blood lead team with LCCHP, and make sure that like there's some level of just, either communication or like some level of like a role in making sure that that land use pieces are understood by land use, cause I think that, I mean, that
Right.
as an example is something that, you know, we're dealing with some issues now, and I don't know how
Do
or
you think
why.
that's like an opportunity with, like hooking up with Linda Kiefer, EPA, to kind of really get that historical perspective, what's that, because which would be separate from the water? I mean, I think sometimes that's what we bump into at CDPHE, it's like, well, that person does this, that person does that, and,
I mean,
in
I
a
feel
sense of
like
that
with
historical piece, or-
CDP involved in it now, I feel like that offers the framework for the knowledge to be shared. And like with David coming to the LCCHP, I
Yeah,
think,
mhm.
like that, and
Yeah, I
being
mean,
in
it has really had,
CPD, that's a natural thing, but, are there other places where that can either be downloaded?
Absolutely, I think we can create redundancy, we can add a resource to our website, just where we've added OWTS and TOT. We could absolutely create some good messaging and information, an informational resource through our website. Obviously, and incorporate that into building and into land use, so that all aspects of CPD, and we can catch a lot of property owners in that area. We can also have, information at the ready through the website to provide public, a PSA and education.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, we can use some tools, some communication tools, and incorporate that into the website. I think I immediately see that, and just making sure that our team is up to speed on that. And so maybe that's during one of our Wednesday staff meetings, maybe we do
Yeah,
an
yeah, I would love
overlap,
that.
and
That's
then
great.
maybe we
Mhm.
ask Linda to participate, if we can find a Wednesday that she could come in, and we just educate the CPD team, and then look at ways that we can be supportive through both departments, and then make sure that we've got a good.
And then what you're trying to capture, like, truly is like around well water and California Gulch and that kind of piece, okay, I just wanna make sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Cause yeah, I'm not well versed in that at all, like the reliance on, like EPA, CDPG and that piece, because when it comes to like the blood lead, like we have the health program, but not necessarily, to your point, all of those pieces.
Right, right.
Cool,
And then the maternal, child, adolescent, and family health piece, I wonder
yeah.
about, just, sorry, I just noticed the typo, that's fine. Beast feeding, sorry.
Did we, oh, sorry. It could be that way sometimes. Right, it didn't flag it as misspelled, right, so, like, and I read it as breastfeeding. No, I love that, though, that's
I
awesome.
read it as breastfeeding 3 times before I just noticed.
That's fantastic.
Just reminding and,
Yeah.
like CSU extension and like healthy relationships and those kinds of things, I would love to just continue to explore and like parse out what further resources could be available to us.
Yeah, so we actually capture that in family planning. Healthy relationships is a big part of that.
Yeah,
And I have to see, because I know you're linked in with CSU at this point with Harper, but maybe it's
Excellent.
Karen linking in to make sure that we don't duplicate, as well as support each other, because a lot of where that conversation comes up is truly when we have the opportunity to do outreach, like into the schools. And
Yeah.
and I mean, it's part of when you're doing, like, at least you can speak to that, when you're, when you're doing a family planning visit and you're talking about, like, what a healthy relationship, especially when we get like the PACO girls who come in together.
Yeah.
And sit down and have a bigger conversation. So, no, I think that's great. Perfect.
And then just understanding how much this will expand.
Agreed, when we have a little bit,
Summit
yeah.
Community Care
Mhm.
Clinic brings to us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of the primary care piece, which we
Yeah.
can't currently do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like these, like I said, these are specific to like our core public health services. We get funded, obviously, to do like maternal child health, environmental health, communicable disease prevention, so.
And then
Yes.
I go like bigger on like the homelessness conversations that have happened and like preparing and or supporting any
Right.
kind of like building of the matchmaking or the
Right, because I
home
had seen your email,
hosts
and I
for
hadn't gone through those
youth.
notes yet, yeah.
I don't even remember what email I sent, but, the like, home hosts for youth and like how to integrate that potentially, in like preparing or promoting that opportunity across the community,
Right.
but,
Well,
yeah.
and just
I
basic
think it's just
primary
under-
care,
yeah.
right? I mean, understanding the primary care needs of our community that are not being met now.
Yeah, yeah, and I say that as like, maybe it's a very small part, and it's just
But it's a
like
connection to your
being
point, being aware of some
cognizant
those,
of the
right,
opportunity to plug in or
Agreed.
connect to
Yes,
someone
like,
else.
right, because from my understanding, like, I know that, Human Services is gonna be taking on some pieces, like Wraparound already does some pieces, I know Advocates, is looking for some pieces, and it's just a matter of, if, I don't know if there's like, to your point, like, if there's like a huge play, or just, hey, I'm at the table and I'm aware, and we're making sure that we're pushing that message out.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
I
I
would
would say also, and that's why I put it in the references there, I mean, this is like a 100,000-foot view. If you look at the crosswalk table in the document, it is minute detail, and it has, as Colleen pointed out, the service linkage with DHS as well.
Okay.
This is just really, this is zooming out here and just putting a really high level crosswalk between national, state, and what we do.
Are you talking about the drafted strategic plan as the more
Correct.
detailed? Okay,
Yeah.
and this is the
Yeah,
This
this
is
is
like a
just
summary
presentation.
of that.
Yeah, and this is just capturing it in the sense of, because I think there was that, really wanting to say, hey, we are meeting it, and to your point, like, homelessness isn't in there, but that's not that it's not important, and we shouldn't be sitting at that table, right? I think, that's our, like, where you go in a positive light of, this is great, but I'm just showing like, hey, we are meeting, and, because for me, it's like, I never wanted to be like, look, we just hit the bar, like, to me, that bar is like way up, and
Sure, sure.
we're doing these pieces, but then this is how we raise the bar by doing all these other community pieces, that aren't part of like the normal day-to-day, so to speak, so,
Right,
yeah, this is more of that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then obviously chronic disease, injury prevention, behavioral health promotion, those are the ways we are doing it, and just, even now, just dipping our toes into that harm reduction piece, which has become, obviously that hot topic of Narcan and fentanyl, and I'm working on that. I've gotten the contracts in place. Hate to use the word contracts, I got the ability to bring them in because I had to get a medical order from our medical director to be able to bring them into the county, and then have an education piece. Just was at a state meeting where I have some of the educational pieces I'm gonna try to put together. Chaffey County's got a pretty good program, and I'm gonna have our staff meet with their staff to kind of do it just in time. Train the trainer, and then we'll be pushing it out, working with the sheriff's office, and then going out even further, so
awesome.
should be good. But other ones you are pretty aware of what is happening, so. And then accesses to linkages in healthcare, that's a little bit of all of us do that. And that's really broad, right? It just says access to linkage with healthcare, and we have very specific linkages that we make with some of our referral agencies, as well as some of the service organizations, as well, so.
I just have to bring up again the tobacco, like at some point we were like ready to ban vaping.
No, I know,
Or
and that's,
something.
we,
Like,
we,
I don't
no.
still wanna do that,
No, I totally know,
I
and
think
so, like I
that-
said, we were just getting our feet wet, and the funny part, it's such an older program that it's so very specific, so we wrote like vaping policies into our grant that starts 24, because this was just, hey, we're just gonna do step, and be like, this is how you can, like, quit line, like, very basic, because we were just taking that back under our umbrella. And so I was just actually talking to our tobacco coordinator earlier today, and she's like, I want to start on some of this vaping, and I want to go to these vape meetings, and the state's like, you can't go to those until like your contract starts in July. You're like,
Oh, jeez.
oh my gosh. Anywho, so yes, it is totally on the radar. As you know,
Wow.
it's gonna take us time, because it's gonna be a big, education rollout decisions, like where do we wanna head? Not like, hey, we're going to BOC, we're asking this first, like work session and, working with some of the youth and all those other pieces, as you know, because it's big, and we wanna do it well, and we want it to hopefully go where we all want it to go. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so now we're kind of moving into the capabilities that we are required to have, and that's assessment and surveillance, communications, and right now our communications person is open.
Kelsey has been very generously kind of taking it on right now, but as you can imagine, it's very different from having somebody who's in that position, to someone who's adding it to their current workload. So hopefully, once we have our county PIO seated, that we'll have an opportunity to work with them and then see if we can reopen that position and go from there. Because I think that is really part of our strategic plan is truly comms all the way. Not only, just external, but also internal, and had an opportunity, because I think that was the one big standout, right, from COVID. A lot of folks didn't know what we did prior, and they now know it. We did a lot of COVID work, and now they're kind of like, we still don't know what you do, and so we really want to get better at that. And I think we are developing that, but I think, having an opportunity to bring someone on that's their sole focus would be helpful. Obviously, policy and development and support, partner and community relationships, and then organizational competencies. As you can see, like my name's on a lot of these, but that's more organizational versus, everyone has all of those responsibilities within their own program. This is just more of that higher level, not like programmatic. And then obviously emergency preparedness response, you guys are really well aware of health equity and the social determinants of health. That's just a lot of the work that I'm trying to bring on board and making sure that that lens is in place, as well as looking at some training opportunities. I was just at the state for the last 2 days, and part of the conversation was, everyone talks about like, hey, it's got to do a health equity lens, but that intentionality is really hard to always remember, versus, hey, if our grants allowed, like if every grant allowed a section with some funding for health equity, would that actually fund a position and or, within like an agency to be like, okay, I'm the one, like I'm, the officer, of health equity, and I'm looking through all these things and making sure, and I'm bringing in the training and keeping everyone up to date. Because even some of the things I had heard had even changed, because it was like DEI, like diversity, equity, inclusion, and then someone came up with like ideas, so then it was like inclusion,
Diversity.
thank you. I was like, see, when you flip it, like my brain just now, I just heard this on Tuesday, but like inclusion, diversity, equity, IDEA, and A was accessibility. Right, okay. So then it was idea, and then somebody else presented, and they had the same ones, but it was flipped in another one, and I can't remember. But my point is, that was some of that conversation, because for a lot of our programs, some of those pieces are built in, but we can do it better, and we could, figure that out. And I know the county's, really working on that as well. And so, and maybe that's like, hey, we can get some funding, and I can push it to, a county run position versus like a public health. Like to me, I don't know that I need that, because I feel like that equity, that lens should be, across everything. But all right, cool. And then this is just our organizational chart, so you guys can see it. So if you guys do notice, so it's public health director, obviously we have the board of health, we have the medical officer here, we have a deputy director position that was approved. And we have Kelsey Maxey, who's going to be stepping into our deputy director role here. Like I said, just waiting for HR to make it official, because this all just happened in the last couple of days. And currently, she'll continue on with environmental health and doing retail food and childcare. And currently, this is a division we're talking about, like some support staff piece. But in the end, as you can imagine, really is a flow, and it's going to ebb and flow of like what I need and what she'll have. And a part of it is just building that depth of daily operations. And so, when I do have an opportunity to travel and vacation, that person has a much better understanding, because in the past it's just been someone who's just like, all right, I'm just gonna put out the fires while you're gone, versus like, hey, this place should just be flowing and operating, as normal. So that is really exciting to us. And then those are all the positions we currently have. I do have a position in gray that there might be an opportunity with some funding coming down. And I don't have the right word yet. I just put behavioral health there with that thought of, obviously I'm not going to run a full-blown harm reduction program, but I think it's important, and that's not going away. And that will fall under behavioral health, because it's substance abuse as well as mental health. We don't have anyone who has like ownership over suicide prevention, here in our community. Is that like, could that fall under that person's, wider behavioral health piece? So think about that, because you feel like, oh, and you should think about all these other pieces and be like, great, I have some funding called workforce funding that you guys have approved in extension. We're actually gonna get a part 2 that wouldn't impact that current funding, but to add funding that I think I'll be able to like have an opportunity to really build that out to what we think is needed, and working with stakeholders to be like, hey, what do you think we should be taking on
What lane do
Like
we
with
wanna be on that
Sylvester
one?
and CSU and all that.
All of the
for
above,
that, yeah.
right, be like, hey, how can we complement what the work is?
Yeah.
Where are little gaps, I mean, we know that, but really making it a little bit more formalized, so that when, you know, when I come to say, hey, this is it, and working with Tim as well, right, to be like, hey, this is all the information we've gathered, we think this is it, and this is, you know. It's just a really hard position to name, because like, is it a community health worker, is it an educator, is it like, I don't know yet, so.
Does the school-based health center have a behavioral health specialist?
Too.
They
Other
do,
than
yeah,
the-
they have a, like a mental health provider,
Yeah, mental health,
And
yes.
Summit Community Care Clinic is coming with a mental health provider.
and they're gonna add to that, right, as
And
well.
then- And that is as the need meets and they expand into that position.
Yeah, they feel very comfortable. The hardest part is hiring someone, you know, an additional staff for that position in Summit Community Care Clinic. Because they already have somebody through the school-based health center, but when they have that opportunity to come into our office, they might utilize that person, but they're hoping to have an additional person because those spots will fill.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what we all struggle with, right? Having open, available appointments.
Well, and there
I'm sure for
clearly
people
is
too.
a need for 5 days a week for another primary care center here,
Yeah.
clearly. And so I think that they'll expand into that quickly.
I agree. And they're, I mean, having those conversations, they're pretty aware of that, kind of thing. So, but as you guys know, hiring, just really tough, having someone live here, because that would be the ideal, right? Somebody who lives here, somebody's bilingual, you know, all of the above.
Or perhaps there's already somebody here.
That way,
Perhaps there's already somebody here.
there could be. Okay. All right, so that is that, and now I'm just walking through, I'm just kind of level setting us all the way across before we talk about the strategic plan. The next is our public health budget. There was just that ask of kind of, hey, how does this work and how much do we contribute? So we broke it out, just kind of in program and what it costs us, and then, you know, the contribution from the county, which is 300,000. And so I didn't break it out individually in program, because it's like, am I gonna divide that between each program? Or I'm gonna be like, hey, 300,000 basically pays for like our support staff and myself, and a little bit of Kelsey and our rent, like, I mean, so it might pay for 4 people, right, in the scheme of it all, if you just wanna look at personnel versus, you know, contributing it to the individual program is what I had done. And saying you have like the full, like you have a whole PDF in that 518 folder as well. And then with that being said, we can look at it in a different way of kind of, hey, what are we spending our money on? And as you can imagine, staffing is almost 70%, because we have 61% the personnel, but then we have some contracting, like professional services, that also, you know, like Mike would be included in that one. So almost 70% of our budget truly is personnel, and I think, you know, that is, as we always talk about, like, that's the investment. We've done really well at really streamlining like our supplies and knowing what we need each year versus having a huge surplus kind of a thing, and just keep building a huge surplus. And so I think that is kind of where we're at, because then, you know, the next piece is 21% being, you know, those supplies, and then services that we provide as well, so that's almost 27. And then the one thing, training, like we definitely, with our workforce grant, because we did expand some of those training opportunities. And then if you just want to look at the simplicity of county contribution versus, you know, other sources, as you guys know, are grants, insurance payments, donations. Currently, the county's picking up 34% of our budget, and that's kind of been the norm for at least, I would say, like this last 6 or 7 years, is a third, right? A third the county, a third insurance, a third fees and donations, kind of a thing, so, and grants, so.
Do you have a sense of how much the insurance reimbursement will improve or increase when Summit Community Care Clinic is here?
Well, technically, we don't see any of that money, it's all of them, like, it's fully, they're coming in independent of ours, so where we'll increase our revenue, though, is we are having that conversation now, because I know that Jeff, you had asked like what specific services, and I asked for the list of what they're gonna bring, and the conversation has been, when someone steps in, we're gonna register, like, because they will have somebody there as well to, you know, check them in, that's not our staff, but at the same time, we'll check them into our computer, so that if a person, you know, if a provider's doing an exam and like, oh, you're interested in birth control, like, let me go step out and grab a public health person, and so we don't even, so like, it's almost that model, we'll work around that person, and if we register them to come in, that's a really easy input into our system, and then we will get increased revenue. Same thing with immunizations, family planning, blood lead. So we're anticipating we're probably gonna get a bump, because we really are gonna hold on to those services initially. We don't know what that blend might look like in another year, but initially we want to see what that looks like.
Can we, I just wanna be careful too in this, like, I mean, this decision hasn't been made, so we are very much having the conversations, but
Yes, I'm just
let's
saying, like,
not
when she's
talk
talking
about it as
revenue.
if we've decided on that.
Squashed it,
Yeah,
Yeah, no worries.
Well, but they are coming June 1st. I mean, the Summit Community Care Clinic starts June 1.
They still have to do a presentation to the board and get the final.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're still working out their financial and fiscal, and what that looks like, so.
Yeah, when Tim and I had met with them, they still had some financial work to do on the back end to understand what may or
Yeah.
may not be feasible for them here.
Alrighty, and this is just kind of like, you guys have seen this before and it's in our strategic plan, but this is basically showing all of the, kind of how it all marries. I pulled out some pieces to make it a little, because in the end, no matter what we're doing, we're just trying to expand our capacity. And that to me is really like bringing staff and stabilizing all of our programs so that we can be available at more times for our community to come in and have an appointment. With the end, making our community better. So there's our mission, there's our vision, there's our values, there's our principles, and then kind of where it all falls in, as far as that goes. It's just like an infographic. And in the end, like, this is our strategic plan, right? We're talking about, the big three that are in there. We talk about stabilizing the agency and returning to pre-pandemic levels of service. I feel like we ebb and flow in the sense of really having to work around some of our clinical staff because we don't have a full-time immunization nurse in place. It's been advertised, I think we're up to 3 months at this point that it's been advertised. So, really trying to figure out a way, and maybe this becomes a bigger conversation with Tim and I of like, we need to increase that salary band just because of, not being able to attract anyone to come in. And that's just a lot of additional work for our other clinical staff. Ironically, like, I've had to step in a few times and help out, which has been, like, for me, it's like fun, but it's not like, my everyday kind of thing, to help out where I can. Community health, really looking at some of those programming pieces, what can we do? And then, that communication piece, increasing awareness, education, and advocacy for public health, and its critical role in the community, secure funding, and build support from elected officials and the public, right? All of us just working together, like, hey, this is what we want to do, this is how we're funding it, and looking for some of those other sources after we stabilize. Like, if there's an opportunity that absolutely comes that we're like, we cannot pass this up, we'll come to you guys, because I never go for new funding sources or new grants without coming, to the board first to say, hey, this is why I think this would be a great fit for us, and this is what we can do with it. And so, I can't remember if I have, and I think that's it. Oh, and this is just everyone for Denim Day, everyone, and it's not everyone's there. These are the folks that are sitting physically in, public health office, but obviously, we have our COVID team, our tobacco coordinator works remote, and then we also have our senior center. But like right now, this is public health specific is what I am talking about. So, I don't know if Mike, do you start next? Okay, wait, so I'm gonna leave that, and I'm gonna go out if you guys want to see, right, can I just, oh no, I go out. Oh yeah, there you go, thank you,
Yeah.
Yep, and then I'll see all the docs, right? And so not to say, here's the,
I needed to know that.
you see, I was about to go backwards, and you're like, all right. But so this is not the first time you guys have seen it.
So much less annoying.
So much less than.
So like, this truly isn't the first time that you guys have seen it. You've had copies of it. This is the latest and greatest that was updated, and actually it was updated on 4/20.
Do you see Corbin?
I can't see his face.
And so,
Really awkwardly, press your face against the window.
No, that's not Corbin, but I'll go down there.
Okay.
Alright,
Okay.
I got Corbin
I
like
think
here.
that is Corbin.
Okay.
I feel like.
is Corbin
like,
coming for me or not?
Who's Corbin? Do you want me to go find Corbin? I'm happy to do that.
No, he's sitting right there.
Yes. Will you, after this, we have Sarah sign and then, Dr. Lisa.
Sarah sign that.
Yeah, and Dr. Lisa, and then,
Got it.
with the clerk, the, whatever.
Notary.
The notary.
Notary,
Let's
let's get it.
Taking notes. I got it.
Beep, beep, boop, bop.
Alright, thank you.
And so,
Godspeed.
a lot of these beginning pieces I will end up making an appendix. Just wanted to, like, the first time you guys go through it, like, looking through it, because basically, I really want to start on like page 22, where it's like, here's the priorities, you know, versus all of the beginning of like, this was our process, this is how we came together, you know. And I've been working with staff, you know, for, you know, at least the last, like, solidly with staff for the last 4 months, not only working on their goals, how does this align to what we're doing, as well as ensuring that we're doing it to like a national standard. If ever we want to do publicly, you know, health accreditation, like, we wrote, like, there's a template, and this is basically what we had utilized to kind of fill in the blanks. But like I said, a lot of this beginning piece is truly, you know, just that intro for you guys. And then once we kind of get to that final, we'll put it in an appendix. Because it's not final at this point, it's still in draft. I still have to write the executive summary. And like I said, we'll rework it. And I'd say, like, one of the comments from Kelsey was truly the, like, if you're starting your priority on page 22, no one's gonna even know what you're trying to do. And I was like, fair enough. And that's why I wanted to reiterate that, yes, we will chunk out everything to the end as an appendix of this is how it is, and capture that. And so with that being said, I'm gonna scroll through. Once again, here's that chart that we started with. Here's the more detailed information of all of those pieces that were captured in those slides broken out. This doesn't have the specific person like it does in the slides, so it's just, and all of the gray area that you see is truly verbatim out of what is the requirement. So I'm just gonna scroll through all those, like, that's all the detail. And then that's our SWOT analysis. We did that, you know, within our team, captured all that info as well. That's that infographic that you've seen. And like I said, page 22. It's you know, starting on that priority, right, that we talked about. It's just really stabilizing the agencies, seeing what our capacity is, and going from there. And there's just a lot of pieces to that, as you guys know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the second priority for us is truly community health and looking at that feasibility of bringing in that, you know, an additional primary care. And I think Kayla, you know, being on that meeting, Kayla's just like, you know, what is your intent to really build this out and actually be, you know, another fully vetted entity versus, hey, I'm showing up twice a week in your community as like a subset. So I think, you know, that there's so much value in having those conversations now and really being like, hey, this is great and we want to help you, but this should not be their end goal.
Right.
Because we all feel confidently, I think, you know, and I can't speak for you guys, but I think in that conversation of they're gonna outgrow us and that like 2 days a week time slot that they might be coming in to our space, to really think about what that long-term picture is.
Sorry, you were talking about summer care?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's just a piece of it. And, you know, and then there's, you know, you're looking at, you know, referral services, figuring out, you know, where those resources are and getting better connected, right? And making sure that people know how to connect. In it all. And then, you know, shouldn't say that, the last one is truly that comms piece is all about, you know, that increased awareness. How do we do that? Like I said, I'm hoping once, and I don't know where we're at with the county PIO / communications person. I know that there was, like I sat in on the interview of one person, and I didn't know if that, you know, where we're at with that.
I think Sarah Edwards accepted the position and starts on the 15th, was 3 days ago.
June. So
June.
Yes, but
okay.
no.
Yes, okay,
Well, that's exciting.
yes.
And so my hope is, because that was the ask for me, was to kind of talk with her, and then show her our job description, say, hey, do you think this is complementary? Like, obviously you would sit in public health, but wanting that opportunity to, you know, if it goes big, like we were at our wildfire tabletop, like, we don't need our person just only strictly working on, like, we will only do public health messaging, like, to come in and support, like,
Yeah.
we were only gonna put out fire and things about well and water and, you know, all these other things. You know, and I think there's for me, there's some excitement of having that person. Having public health, who will also be getting similar training. We're trying to bring in a PI course come October. I actually have taken that course. I can be a PI as well. I have the cert, but would rather stay where I am and give it up. So my hope is that when Sarah starts in June, that we'll have that opportunity to be like, hey, does this work for you to kind of, you know, rehire that position, which we have budgeted for, you know, at least for the next 3 years. kind of thing, and then maybe we're in a much better rhythm of like, hey, this is the message on these months, because that's basically what we were building into post-COVID was, hey, it's cancer, breast cancer awareness month, it's this awareness month, or hey, all these things are happening at the state level, are you linked in? And we're kind of slipping a little bit on that right now, just because like Kelsey's doing amazing, our clinical staff's pulling some stuff, and so, but those are our big three as far as it comes to the strategic plan. And like I said, it's in draft, and hopefully have it finalized, and maybe that becomes the ask in the next 2 months, once we set up the next Board of Health meeting is, do you want to add to it? Do you want to edit some pieces, or really capture like, hey, I really want to make sure that this is really apparent, and then make it our official and go from there. Yeah, so like I said, there isn't a decision today, it's just, it's truly where I think, because obviously Mike's been supporting me through that as well, and our staff, but like, this is where we're at, and this is where, this is what I see as the future for the next couple of years, because it's not just gonna be, as you guys know, one and done.
And I think like setting up another work session to really dive into like the
maybe that's
specifics of the
more of a
language
like a
would be
forcing
awesome.
function.
Yeah, 'cause
okay.
looking at the SWOT analysis and like Appendix B of the summary of reports and key trends, like there's some things that I think, like just going back to in general, not just in public health, but like across the county of not underappreciating the basic, like delivering the basic functions of any department and just doing that well. And I think there's some pieces that I see in like the staffing assessment or your assessments and like what's come, and then I just feel like tweaking this language to get different, like not new ideas or like events, like that, like maybe setting 6 public events is not really like the action item to get better understanding or promotion of public health services. Maybe it's just getting those, like strengthening the partnership internally at the county or with other partners of like what is offered, so that it's just this.
That's an automatic, everyone knows.
Yeah, it's just
I
like,
appreciate it. Because sometimes like people don't always know, it's almost like when we talk about like with COVID, people are like, oh, you do all the work, you're like, yes, but we also do all these other things, and if even our local, if we're not able to even as like a county, other departments to be like, oh, public health does that, and that's one of our things, right?
Been using that hashtag.
We're using that hashtag, right? It's
public health does that?
Is that what you do, right? It's called public health does that, so we're using that hashtag right now.
Nice.
To like, to your point, but I totally hear what you're saying,
that.
and I can appreciate that, so thank you.
I don't know if this is related to that, but I think like I'm looking through the table that has like action steps, key results, and then objectives. And I think like 90% of the time, those are really good. Like, and in my brain, like an action step is like a thing you have like pretty much 100% direct control over doing. Like we will write this report, we will develop this metric. You don't rely on anyone else for that to be successful. And then the key results are sort of then, if we have this better metric, we'll be able to track better.
Okay, yeah.
But that key results shouldn't be an action.
Okay.
It should be what
No,
the
it's good
actions
feedback.
achieve.
Yeah. I see
And
what
then
you're
key
saying.
results, there should be some like story you could tell about why, if these key results do happen, then this bigger community objective
I got you.
has a chance of
Sure,
occurring.
I love that, okay.
And the more, I think 90% of the time, but like there are a few
There's a couple we
actions
can
that
go
have
in and
crept
tweak.
into results.
Yeah,
And I just think it's cleaner, because then you can write your budget of like, we need X staff to do these action steps. And you can like tie it really clearly, and then in 2 years, we'd like to have more staff to be able to do
right, and
the
almost
next
like
set of
figuring out what
action
that right
steps.
size is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great.
But I don't know, that like the strategic plans, that has been helpful for me, is like to really clearly distinguish between things you could like, someone said like stake your career on, which sounded dramatic, but like, the things you have direct control over.
Right, no, I think that's a good distinction, for sure.
Versus
Yeah,
things
I'll
that
go back to it.
but then community outcomes, you can't commit to achieving those. You can commit to doing your action steps that you hope or think will achieve them. Anyway, just one.
I mean, I might like push back, because if I don't have, like, on some of it, like, I hear the distinction, but I'm like, I want to hit those metrics.
Yeah,
But
but
there's
like,
no punitive piece, maybe that's.
but like, you can't commit to reduced team.
Right.
Yeah, I just said we would move it down to my office.
Yeah, but like, you can't commit that teams will vape less.
I know.
You can commit to, X number of
Or right,
outreach
maybe direct,
activities.
like like
That's a
cause and
really
effect.
great, yeah, I mean, I think
Cause
that
and
gets us
effect.
in trouble when we write for grants in general, and like the deliverables that we write, and then sometimes might
We don't deliver.
force, right? Like, it has to be
Yeah.
like, we will make our best effort towards this end goal as a ideal, but if you don't deliver that, you've delivered your action, and here's what we learned if we don't see this result from our actions. I think that's a much better way to think about writing all of our grants.
And then maybe there's opportunity to add to that of,
I emailed our update,
Sorry,
to all
Ann.
of you. I have to go to the Regional Housing
Development.
Authority Subcommittee meeting,
Okay,
but I emailed all
Thank
of you,
you.
so then if you have any questions about it, you can let us know.
thanks.
Okay.
I appreciate it, and thank you.
And a lot of times it's the funders' fault, like the grant makers want you to promise
Yeah.
that you will like end teen pregnancy
Right,
next
and then
year.
it, like, yeah, it might
It's
like, it might elevate your
Yeah.
application, but I think to your point which we don't have is, to kind of build on that, like, if we don't hit it, really having that, I don't wanna use the word, because I'm thinking after action report, corrective action, which sounds like so, like, ugh, versus like,
Pivot?
like reevaluation or
Adapt?
something.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
like, you know what I mean, like a reevaluation if metrics not met, reevaluation of process, or, something just so we're not like, we didn't meet it,
Right,
kind of thing, right?
yeah, I
So
think
just
you can
capturing
provide that.
maybe something like that.
Mhm.
But you can be a little bit more nebulous too when you're setting up your goals, like we will reduce teen pregnancy.
Yeah,
There's not a
But
specific
then it's not
percentage.
smart, it has to be measurable.
and, but I think you can also be honest, like you can.
No, I
have-
like this,
you-
good
you-
conversation.
You can have metrics for your community objectives, and you can have metrics for your
Grant writing.
action steps. So
Okay.
like, the metric is like, we were gonna write 5 reports, like, at the end of the
Right.
year, did you write, like, are they on the table, But
Or
then,
outreach and things, no, I think that's, like I said, I like that.
so you should have metrics for both the action steps and the community outcomes. And I see like a lot of times in strategic plans, those get like blended together.
Mhm.
Yeah, you will
And-
always
No,
be
but I
double trying
hear
to
the
predict
distinction.
human behavior.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I think you can also be honest, like, like choose that, are we gonna end teen pregnancy? No. Like, but you can, or like teen vaping, like, if you have one event, how much impact are you gonna have?
Versus some of the policy pieces, which
Versus,
really is
yeah,
that
or-
stepping upstream piece, 100%. Yeah, no, I can appreciate that.
Insurance
Thank you.
companies will reward physicians by having to target hemoglobin A1C, so diabetic control. So I was rewarded by having an average number to control my patient's behavior. So I get
Yeah,
mad
that-
at people that eat
the
candy
parameters.
bars. Or chocolate for breakfast.
That was an afternoon.
It was
snack.
not breakfast.
That was
But it's
I
a
told you he had his egg.
But it's a terrible reward system, because you can't, as anybody, right, as a governing body, be responsible for human behavior.
Yeah,
So let me close this one. Where's my close for this one?
Because it lives in yours, not in
Oh.
the team, because of the way that it was shared. So what are you trying to get to?
Okay, I just, I wanna go back, so maybe.
So click on the Teams icon, it's the,
Down.
in the,
Oh, yeah, got it,
Taskbar?
Yep, so we're all learning together.
Yes.
Okay, and like I said, so we'll set up, so for me, the takeaway is, some of those feedback points, and then bring it to a work session, say, hey, we've worked on it, obviously providing prior to the work session, not like, we just did this, and giving you some time to process and
On the plan,
on the strategic
yeah,
plan,
and you would
yes.
like comments or questions.
Yeah, like
so that
if you
point
see
can
something now,
be-
you might like,
Yeah.
chunk it
Do
to me now, like.
Yeah.
Not like, let's wait 2 months, because it might impact, some of the other changes that I will be making in it.
What's
Okay.
your preferred format for that?
It's in
listing?
PDF, so
Really?
you guys can, or I can PDF it if you want to capture, oh, no, it's not, it is in PDF, good. No, I mean that good in the sense of, I really like comments, because I have to say sometimes, when it's in a word and people are tracking changes, like you could have done your changes, but somebody could have come behind you and changed your changes, you know, versus like in the PDF, just comment.
Okay.
And you could even be like, I think the language should say this, or, and you know, and then if somebody else is like, I agree, or, you know, like it's having that comment kind of flow as a conversation.
Great.
Yeah, that'd be great, yes. Because I've definitely had that where I'm like, I made changes and somebody else made changes and it becomes
It
convoluted.
gets very confusing.
When you have multiple people touching it in such a large document as well. Okay, I am just gonna bring you back. So that is all I have, and then Mike was just gonna talk about, can't remember if I was on page, we'll just start N12. You got so angry. Sorry, I tried to do it a different way, I didn't like it.
The computer.
Like, I didn't like it, right? I was like, so, sorry, Mike. There you go.
It's all good.
And I'm gonna move us back up.
All right, so not to take up a lot of your time, but kind of to circle back around and talk about the Healthcare Coalition. I'm a board member representing rural jurisdictions in public health. The composition of the board is emergency management, hospitals. Really, truly, the South Central Region Healthcare Coalition is focused on executing hospital preparedness program, right? So like most of my work for Colleen is in the PHEP program, Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program, like the stuff that she had in there that I was doing, that comes underneath that grant through CDPHE. This piece here with the Healthcare Coalition is to really execute the hospital preparedness program. I think I told you last time that we were kind of late to the punch in Colorado. The East Coast was maybe 5-6 years, and basically the state was called on the carpet and said, you guys haven't done this yet. And so we're at least 3 or 4 years behind, but you know, the intent is not unlike emergency management, right, is to be able to prevent, respond, and recover from, in this case, medical emergencies, right? In truth, because of the way funding comes and the fact that there are no assets, there's no ambulances, there's no physical assets like there is in the East Coast. Like in North Carolina, their healthcare coalition has medical assets that they can respond with. We in the Healthcare Coalition in the state of Colorado are much more about sharing information, planning, and situational awareness distribution. If you look at kind of the recent things that, obviously COVID's one of them, but RSV this fall was a really big concern on the Front Range. And we had weekly meetings, and part of the Healthcare Coalition's job was to find oxygen to be able to, that was actually a shortage. I don't know how it percolated up here in Lake County.
It didn't.
But it was a real big problem in the Front Range, and such that we had, weekly calls, but daily emails kind of looking at the status of how to be able to handle that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Go to the next slide, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other piece and component of it is resourcing. I talked about oxygen, but during the pandemic, during the height of it, transportation assets were another resource that were marshaled at the state level, right? So you had the hospital, what was it? Combined Hospital Transfer Program, which basically allowed hospitals to pool resources to transfer patients. I don't think Leadville and St. Vincent's used it, but Heart of the Rockies definitely used it.
We did. We took lots of patients from the Front Range.
Yeah, but through the Combined Hospital Transfer Center.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's a good example of a resource that was marshaled at the state level and then allocated out. Each hospital was supposed to be paired. You were the chief operating officer, right? Yeah, so hospitals were supposed to be paired with a large metropolitan and a rural hospital, with the theory that every day they would compare notes and say, what do you need?
I don't know who your partner.
Swedish.
Yeah, so you had somebody who had some horsepower to assist you, that was the concept. So that's kind of a good idea of what the Healthcare Coalition's supposed to do, certainly in the state of Colorado. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the council itself, we meet once a month, as a minimum. A lot of times we meet, ad hoc to look at RFPs and, because we do a lot of planned building, and those are usually all, RFPs that go out to providers for them to write them, but we have to review them, like you would review any RFP to determine, whether or not it's cost effective,
Can I
next,
just,
please.
sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I thought it'd be easier to go this way.
Thank you.
Kind of behind me, because I can't go very far.
If you hit the
Hello,
space bar, I think that would advance it.
hey.
Did you say next slide?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I just, yeah.
So, really, Healthcare Coalition is supposed to help and augment support, emergency support function 8, right, which is public health and medical. We have our, now bi-monthly meetings, and in fact, we had Kara, who is the coordinator for the South Central region, on to talk about capabilities to all of our ESF8 partners. That's really who they're supposed to be supporting. For example, in the wildfire exercise that you participated in, one of the things we talked about is that I would notify the Healthcare Coalition that we had this going on, so that if we needed resources, we could request those resources and it wouldn't be a big surprise. The Bear Creek Fire is a good example of the Healthcare Coalition marshaling resources fortunately didn't have to, but to evacuate a long-term care facility which was adjacent to the fire. So those are kind of good examples of the resource marshaling and availability that is done by the Healthcare Coalition. And as you can see, like most of what we do is virtual, as you would imagine, right? Because it's 5 different counties, as well as the state. We're never really in one location. It's not efficient to do so. Next.
Sorry.
Okay, so I thought along the same lines as Colleen talking about, the strategic plan, I'd kind of say, hey, here's what we're doing in the realm of emergency preparedness and response. So this is forward-looking, so it doesn't look at what we've already done, but just to give you an idea and if you had questions. So that didn't come out really very well visually, did it? It was easy to see on my screen.
Yeah.
But, so as an example, next week we have our annual continuity of operations plan tabletop.
For public health specific. I mean, this is all most public health.
Yeah, OEM will be there too.
Well, yes.
So what we do is,
I'm trying to
test
make
the
it
plan. Does
Oh,
the
yes.
plan work? And step through it. Yeah, that might.
Window width.
100.
Oh, look at you guys.
150.
25.
25.
Sweet.
Oh,
All right.
oh, window
All right.
width.
So, and in June, I will be giving what is also annual, because I did it last year, active shooter training to public health. Scroll down some more. When we get into September, we are definitely going to be extremely busy. We have on the books now looking at point of dispensing community-wide. Most of you have been there. Dr. Lisa was kind enough to assist us with our last one. We anticipate we will have the new worked bivalent. That's at least that's what they say they're going to have. As well as seasonal influenza, and it looks like funding would be available to be able to provide this to folks.
Yeah, so I built in funding for flu for us to purchase it privately, which means that we don't so if we don't accept it from the state, we're able to kind of take the hit, and I budgeted that in there. And it's not a hit, it's a really great, valuable resource. It's
Well,
not
it's
like this-
reimbursable, you can.
Well, technically, because if we do it as a pod, we're not collecting insurance, we're not collecting anything, so we don't. So we actually eat that, but it's been valuable. We've got more flu shots last year than we had in the previous years doing that, and it's a really great practice where we have so much new staff that it's just really great practice for everyone to do a pod, so we're looking to do that in October.
Is that inherent in the pod that you don't collect insurance or do that? Just
Because
for-
right, in an emergency situation, you wouldn't do that.
So you're
And,
practicing for smallpox.
yeah, so basically we're
Right,
practicing
or
just for
even
that.
anthrax and things like
Right.
that, which
Because-
was really
yeah.
the,
Yeah, yeah, the nidus.
20 years ago, that's, this whole program that we're looking at was derivative of the anthrax attacks. I mean, that's really what put this stuff in place. And like a lot of the plans actually still talk anthrax. Maybe they shouldn't, but that's what they
A
do.
lot of other scarier things.
So,
Mike, what's the green and,
Oh, the distinctions between colors.
yeah, the colors?
yeah, in our plan, the training plan, it has a legend. Unfortunately, I didn't put it in here, so green is meetings, yellow is exercises, and I think pink is training.
Okay.
It has a legend in every page, but I didn't copy it on here.
Cool.
So go to the next.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just scrolling down.
So October's super busy because we intend obviously to implement the pod. But then, as Colleen indicated, I'll be teaching the L105, which is it's a brand new course. I've taught it twice, but that's it. There's only 3 instructors in the state. I'm one of them. And so we've kind of like bent them. They didn't want to, but we said we need one in the Western region because we have all these folks who are gonna be kind of reinstantiating our public health PIO capability, and so that's the mark on the wall, is to do that mid-October. And then the next week I'll be working through our evac and reentry plan, the actual plan we have as a hybrid, right? So we already have this course that you can see there, G358, which is essentially kind of globally how you do it, but not specific. So this will be tuned specifically to us. And then last but not least, some of you have been in, I will be doing in-person ICS 100 with the anticipation of Colleen getting more staff, because of turnover. The in-person class is, on my estimation, much better than having to do it in the line. Would you not agree as a
Yes.
recipient of that? So that's what we have on tap right now, just from a training and exercise perspective. We will be doing opportunistic things as well as they come available. And go ahead.
Well, I'm saying, so what I'm currently working on is updating the scope of work for Mike's contract to bring it to you guys the first week of June to obviously keep him on for another year. We do have funding for that.
Okay.
And part of it is that what we have written in and what you do is that he has been splitting his time, not only with public health, but obviously with emergency manager and trying to do that kind of mentorship and doing some of these pieces, just because there's been so much new staff, even like in sheriff and, in some of these trainings, like we had done the ICS 100 and 200 with like the hospital. And so it's just, it's been really valuable to kind of catch people up.
The PIO training, do you need a prerequisite?
Yeah, there are 2 prerequisites, but they're online.
Yeah, they're pretty manageable.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So you gotta do a time investment into it, but it's truly a
can-
couple hours, maybe.
Okay, because we could get our comms, or new
Well,
comms.
that's our
would be the
intent, that's why
intent.
that's why we're pushing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you're planning to do it?
Well,
Is that
hopefully
what
I'll
you
have a
said
comms,
earlier?
my comms, like hopefully I will have a comms
okay,
person on,
okay.
like I've already taken the course.
Yeah.
But I think, it's just valuable, what was valuable about it for me, and it's changed a little bit since I've taken it, but really just that understanding of like, maybe like chain of command, like who do you go to? I mean, if I was acting
Well,
as a
I'd love
PIO,
to,
like if I was acting as PIO, I know how the information comes to me, like, because as a PIO, like, you were just, helping generate the message with somebody telling, hey, I need these 4 points, make it pretty,
Yeah.
thing, but they're just, they
Yeah.
are truly the messenger.
If you
Yeah.
wanted to do it,
Yeah, I think it's valuable.
There's no problem doing that. It's like a couple prerequisites that are online.
Yeah, and totally doable.
And where is that? Because I've taken the courses in person. I don't think I've taken, other than BOH course, any
You
of
mean
them.
like where would it be
So we're
Yeah.
pushing for
physically
here.
held?
No. Where's like the list of the online stuff if I wanted to do like the
What
prerequisites?
website would she go to?
Oh, well, it's not really
Does-
all
yeah.
together in one location, but I can send you.
Of course.
I have the stuff we sent the students. I taught this class first part of March, in the Front Range.
Mhm.
I will send you what they got, and so it says here are the
And they're
prerequisites and everything, with the links to where you want. Would you like that?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure.
Are they, but Mike, are they both in co-train? Or no, do you have to look at
prereqs?
the
No,
FEMA, they're not? Okay,
no, they're FEMA courses.
okay, I can remember.
I don't feel that bad then.
And then you have to
Because
go, like, then you gotta make sure you get your FEMA student ID, cause then you can't take it without it, like, I think that's what sometimes hard is, to your point of like, where do I have to go, what is it, can someone send it to me, cause even
Yeah.
now, it's like, I think it's in GoTrain, apparently it's off of FEMA, so.
Okay.
So I would say though, and just to be clear, like all this stuff here is not in the FEP grant. Like all that grant stuff is like completely separate.
What do you mean
This
by
is
that?
additive.
Because
So-
what happened,
Go ahead. No, you
well, so
answer.
what happens like with our grant, right, it's like, oh, touch these two plans. Coop is usually in there. But some of these other plans, you know, if they're not in there, like, it's still really important that we know how to do this. And so basically what I've been trying to generate with Mike is truly having like a rhythm of, hey, every, like, you know, in a year, in this quarter, you always work on Coop and this year, you're always looking at this plan and this plan, even if it's not a requirement, because otherwise, if it's not a requirement, you know, in the past, like, it would just sit on the shelf for like years and not even be viable, because that's our whole point, and that's just, you know, that was my big piece, like having Mike help me stabilize COVID, but really building this out so that, like, because basically when you're gone, it all comes back, like, you know, like to the director again, to be like, okay, but if we have this rhythm and everyone knows, like, oh, we're working on this plan, and it makes it easier through the years, right, of like, everyone has seen this, or, oh, it's the first time, and it builds the, what's the right word, for everyone else to have that, it builds that depth and understanding, because pre-COVID, a lot of it, as you can imagine, felt to me, but now everyone knows, like, staff-wise, that they all have a role, and it's not always just like, we have to stand up this huge emergency versus, like, just really understanding the bigger pieces, I guess, I don't know if I said that well.
As an example, in the next grant year, which is, you know, the
July 1st,
23-24,
Mhm.
is a public health
Yes.
resilience plan, which everybody on the call in the whole state said, what? What is that? And they didn't have an answer, but we will have a plan by next
And then you
spring.
template, who knows? But, yeah, but
We don't know
there's
what
some
it looks
additive
like,
things.
but we will have one.
But we should all know, like, you know, we just went to mass fatality training in Park County, and that's not something that's like a requirement for mass fatality, but if something was to happen here, like, we have to understand our role is truly like standing up Family Assistance Center, supporting the coroner, you know, all of those pieces that aren't captured in our, you know, obligated grant thing, but are still very important as a county, as you guys know.
Yeah,
And so it becomes the norm
you just
versus.
say that, like, this is not part of the grant, that means like little to nothing to me as far as like, that's great, like, I'm glad that there's
Like-
that plan, and
Well, because
why
that's,
is that,
yeah, and now we have a whole,
you're
like, training
talking
plan.
language, I'm not understanding parts of it,
Yeah.
just, you know.
Yeah, so now I truly have a whole entire training plan that when it is 100% dependent on me, that I'm like, oh, okay, I need, and now that I haven't ever, you know, right here, we'll start building that, not right now, but like start building that up, so it's like two of us are handling like EPR when, you know, the contractor is done, so to speak, to be like, okay, great, you're gonna handle this quarter, okay, these are the 3 things that we're gonna do above and beyond what's, you know, in the grant. And I'd say the grant, we don't know what it's gonna look like in the next 3 years, because what happens is CDC decides like, okay, these are the things we're gonna work on for 5 years. Well, that time is done after we finish out this next one, and so we don't even know what the priorities will be. But nothing changes. I mean, we've always done like pandemic planning, always continuum of operation. We now have an EPI plan, because that came online. Well, we ended up doing it, and they're like, well, you know, you don't have to do it. Well, we did it, and it's done, and so, you know, we'll get credit when the time comes, but there's things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Alrighty. All right, so that is really all we have public health wise, and it sounds like community planning and development has sent an email. I haven't looked at my emails yet to do an update. I don't know if we want to read it or if we just include that update in the minutes. It's really up to you guys.
Wait, sorry, what was that last question?
I'm sorry. So Anne had shared that she just sent us an email. Like, I don't know if we want to read that or.
Click on the Teams icon.
Okay. Did you put it in there?
I sure did. Click on hidden channels. I can change that on the left-hand side.
Am I in
Click
the,
it.
oh, yeah, okay,
And click department reports,
got it,
and then click files up at the top,
got it.
then click March. Then click that. Then click report.
Move this up out of the way.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Alrighty, so it looks like this is her, director
If you
report.
go back, I think on the last, in the file, there was a BOH,
Was it?
I think.
Okay, that's okay, I don't have to just watch this. No, I don't.
Click Teams.
Oh, I gotta go back to Teams, all right, there we go. We're learning together, right?
OWTS?
Then, this may be something else I'm gonna put in there.
Yeah, she
Looks like
emailed.
Just kidding. Trying to be.
No, but this is really great, this is good for me to know, because even as I'm navigating other things, so.
We have the draft code language in review with the state. Draft code language in review. Once we have that back, we will be happy to have a work session or present the staff report findings and code amendment proposal. The process does allow the BOH to make changes to the proposed regulations, changes during the public hearing without having to notice again and hold another hearing, so it will be fluid process once the state has approved the language that is proposed. After the BOH approves, we submit the final approval to the state and they review within 5 days. And the regulations become effective 45 days after the approval. We will await whether a work session or a public hearing process is preferred as the next steps. Happy to send out staff report, which may help make that decision. We're working on transitioning the majority of the TOT reporting, follow-up work, disclosure, and signed agreements to the title companies. We're also going to be hosting a stakeholder meeting to offer a walkthrough of the process with an opportunity for questions and answers to strengthen the relationship and knowledge on the TOT process. And the code change that she's referring to,
I don't know if she means Reg 43.
I guess, Reg
That's what I'm guessing.
43, and was that like part of our last few work sessions on,
The biggest thing that they were talking about, like, so,
was that like title transfer or transferring that permit or that application to owners? We
well,
already
we
did
had
that.
that all, that's already all in there.
Yep.
It was, the big piece was pulling out public health's name as being like the implementer of the program, putting in CPD, and then the big piece was, and correct me if I'm wrong, was really that definition of the bedroom that, that was missing and felt that that needed to be in to make it that much easier.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that was the email she sent. You guys are copied on that too.
okay, and yeah, and I just, of the top reporting, okay, cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
All right, well, great.
all right, so.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll work on getting that feedback and then, sorry, next, as far as
So our-
like addressing work sessions on strategic plan, do you wanna do that in our updated or just let us know like the cadence
Yeah,
once
we'll
you
do, yeah.
prepare?
Liz and I will actually sit down and really talk that through, so.
Would it be helpful for me to be there?
For the work session? I don't think so.
You'll let me know?
Yes, like if it's something like, oh my gosh, but if we're talking about, if something all of a sudden has changed, and someone communicating, but you're part of those, and now it sounds like Kayla's gonna be sitting in on them as well as Tim, like, I wanna be mindful of your time.
Just make sure I get those meeting agendas for when I know they're gonna happen, Teams.
And then I know you guys are gonna go get that thingy signed and stuff. And so we'll work on updating, the Board of Health meetings, but currently our next one is scheduled for August 1st. So,
I don't have that on my calendar. You'll send that invite out.
yeah, I'll do all that.
Please and thank you.
Yep.
Alrighty, thanks.
So my only thing about this is there's a couple segments in there. The reimbursement does not need to be budgeted for. I will continue to donate my salary back to the public health department. So I will just not invoice. So there's
Okay,
no line
thank
item
you.
on your budget for that. And then, there's a clause at the, on, Schedule A, which is my job responsibilities, to help with the public health department. And the only thing I just need to disclose is that I have opted out of the Medicare program, to run my direct primary care practice, which means that you cannot bill Medicare under my licensure. So just to you say that out loud and that everybody knows that you cannot send bills out using my MPI number.
But we can otherwise, right, Colleen? We have other ways to do that?
For, well, Medicare, the only thing we're able to reimburse out of Medicare is pneumococcal and flu, two vaccines.
So
And
you
I
can't do
believe
that
we
under.
don't do it under your license, we do it under public health, hence why we can only bill those two things. So I think it's independent of your license for Medicare.
And you can't bill them under Taryn, because Taryn,
Yes,
is
and if
the
we need to,
physician
but,
assistant is there.
Medicare is funky, like for public health, like we couldn't bill anything other than pneumococcal, because it's truly, like the contract we have is truly immunization, public health.
Right.
And, we have to have a provider over us, but we don't bill, like, it doesn't come under our license,
You
like.
don't use my MPI number.
Yeah, we don't use your
Yeah,
Like,
and
we
there's a-
use the
and
individual,
there's a
'cause we all
separate
have.
MPI number that the public health department has. The only thing that I'm responsible for, honestly, is just the medical supervision, which means that you can bill under a different entity, but I just have to disclose that. And that, there's a 2-year penalty from Medicare, which comes up in November of 2024, so we can change it if we want to.
Like a tiger shape.
Yeah, but just know that that's what that is. And then the last component is that I am getting my hip replaced June 12th. And if everything goes well, there will only be a 3-day absence of me. Because I'll be back to work. I'll be back to work on day 4. I did it after, other surgeries, and so I believe that I can. But in my absence, Dr. Eric Gibb, a family physician from Buena Vista is covering for me. And obviously, Taryn in the public health department has that for medical backup if necessary. But in Schedule A, it does say that there are other physicians within Rocky Mountain Family Practice that will cover for me. He's not exactly in Rocky Mountain Family Practice, but we have an agreement to cover for me if necessary.
Okay.
And then, of course, if there are complications and I don't come back, then he'll cover as long as necessary.
Okay. And we have this copy of this, or do we have this physical
Yeah,
copy is the only,
so,
because I just want to get
Chris
rid of that.
Floyd, has, yeah, I'm not sure why that didn't, she took all the rest of them out, but just not that one. So yeah, she does have, that electronically, Tim has that.
Okay.
But it's not been signed yet, and again, I've worked 25 years without a contract, and so I have no problem not continuing not to do that.
Well, because we had an MOU, and Chris was like,
Yeah.
nope.
Would
sign
you
it.
sign it,
Sure.
and then we can get that clean with whatnot and fully execute it and send it back to you?
Sure.
Does that work? Okay, please. And I think that's it. Awesome, thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity, thank you.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I do have a lot more.
You're not also a corner.
Yeah. I didn't like that so much.
Lisa, please stay. Lisa, here's the plan.
You heard about the last, murder that I attended, right?
I don't know, I don't think so.
So.
Do we wanna
you
hear?
all-
Tuna, stop the recording,
Yeah, I
we're
guess
done with our
you
meeting.
could probably.
Do you want to
do that.
adjourn?
Yes, please,
Yes.
we will adjourn.
Okay, let me stop, because I have to write the time.
Zoom. Yeah, there we go.
And on the bottom there.
Yes.